So let's pick off right where we left last week. So we already tackled Article 4 of the Revised Penal Code. We all know that criminal liability shall be incurred by any person committing a felony, although the wrongful act done be different from that which he intended. And under this principle, you have three scenarios wherein criminal liability will still attach, such as your error in personae or mistake of mistaken identity. Second, your aberratio ictus or mistake in the blow, and praeter intentionem. Now, to continue, we will be discussing the second part of your Article 4 of the Revised Penal Code. We will still continue with the first part of the first paragraph of Article 4 of the Revised Penal Code, because there are a lot of doctrines and principles that must be learned under this paragraph. So to continue, basic principles, doctrines in relation to the first paragraph of Article 4. So you have here the doctrine of proximate cause. Proximate cause means such adequate and efficient cause as in the natural order of events and under the particular circumstances surrounding the case would necessarily produce the event. This means that kung ibisaya pa nato, kung wala ni siya, dili ni produce ang crime na imong gibuhat. So it really is the cause of the criminal act done. Now, principles in connection with the proximate cause. So there are a lot of wordings by the Supreme Court in relation to proximate cause, and these are the most famous ones. The first one is, he who is the cause of the cause is the cause of the evil cause. Meaning, kay ikaw man yun ang reason sa nganong nahitabo ni, na ikaw tong nasala na nakakos aning sala. He who creates in the mind of another a sense of danger and in reaction to it does something that causes injury upon himself shall be criminally liable. An example for this is ikaw, letter A, so a person A scared B. Unya kaning si B, sa iyang kahadlok, nidagan siya towards this direction, not knowing na kaning direction na patuan niya kay bangin day ni siya. So what happened is he fell to his quiet please. So let me continue. So di ba A scared B, and then B, because of being a scaredy cat, he ran, and then he ran towards this towards the ravine. So kaning ravine bangin ni siya. So to the mind of B, nag-cause siya, di ba, nag-unsa siya, abi niya na patyon ba siya or i-scare siya. So what happened was, di ba, namatay siya tungod sa nahulog sa bangin. So A should be criminally liable because of that happening. Next is, a person shall be liable for whatever is the direct, natural, or logical consequence of his unlawful act. Meaning, if you are the cause, then you will be liable for the effect of your actions. Example, A is driving his motorcycle or motor vehicle. So while negotiating a curve, he saw an accident near the curve. But despite seeing that accident, and while negotiating the curve, he did not slow down. Diba ang normal individual, pag nakakitag aksidente, ug while naka sa kurbada, magpahinay, maging dapat. But what he did was, all the more siya nagpapaspas, wag siya ni slow down. Hence, as a result, nagka three-way vehicular accident involving the motor vehicle driven by A. So, as a result, by failing to slow down, A acted recklessly and imprudently. Because he acted recklessly and imprudently, his behavior is the proximate cause of the fatal accident. Kaya nga no, kung nag-slow down lang unta siya, wala untay na hitabong unsa di ba? Accident. So that means he really is the cause of the evil caused. Had he slowed down, it would not have produced the fatal accident that would produce the three-way vehicular accident. So mo na ang pasabot sa proximate cause. Ikaw ang dahilan, ikaw ang sadyan sa crime. Any questions so far?
Wala, sir.
Wala. Okay. All right. So proximate cause is negated by active force, distinct act or fact absolutely foreign from the felonious act of the accused. Resulting act or damage is due to the intentional act of the victim. So an example of that, when you say negated ka ng, unsa ba, manal siya, meaning walay, dili ni siya dili ang proximate cause, ang ultimate cause. Kaya napay other event na mo pili sa proximate cause. Now, an example with this would be, I have a case na na-decided na in Katiil. What happened was, the victim nag-turn left siya without looking back. Nag-diretso lang gid siya og left turn niya, not knowing na naade ay mubangga na another motor sa iyaha. Now, the court in Katiil ruled that the proximate cause is the direct, the proximate cause here is the pagbangga sa motorcycle sa iyaha. Kaya wala kang buto nag-slow down to motorcycle. But ingon sa Supreme Court na ay contributory negligence on the part of the victim. Why? Because he did not turn to the left side first before turning to the left. So, nanegate ang proximate cause sa accused because naay presence of contributory negligence on the part of the victim or the complainant. So when you say there is contributory negligence on the part of the complainant or of the victim, ang may tabuan is mamitigate ang penalty sa akusado. So although he is the proximate cause, he will still be punished but on a lighter tone ng iyahang punishment. Alright, naipangutana? Any question?
No, sir.
Wala.
Sir.
Okay, kani example. A was hacked by B with a bolo. A thought that he was as invincible as Thor. Thor, God of Thunder. So, feeling man niya siya si Thor, God of Thunder. Gi-block niya ang bolo gamit ihang kamot. So, as a consequence, and to his surprise, nakita niya, dili na siya si Thor. Kay, nakita man niya yung kamot. Nagdugo di ay, hindi ko invincible. So, B went to the doctor. A went to the doctor and he was advised not to engage with the work. Like for example, farming. However, wala na minaw ning si A kay lagi siya na unsa na, siya lagi si Thor. So, what A did was he went with his usual routine of doing his farming chores in the bukid. In the meantime, a case of frustrated homicide was filed against B. Kay ang saman siya, diba, gihack man si B ni A. Gihack si A ni B. So, it is frustrated homicide because although there was a mortal wound, A survived. So, the crime here is just frustrated homicide. So what happened here is A got sick and developed stiff jaw. So because he failed to follow his doctor's instructions, his condition naglala kay tungod aning tetanus. So A finally realized that he is not, after all, Thor, the god of thunder. So what happened was A died. So this is an example of your manigate ang proximate cause. Although ang proximate cause sa wound is ang hacking of B with a bolo, but di ba manigate ang proximate cause ani by other events, di ba? Example ani, an active force, distinct act or fact absolutely foreign from the felonious act of the accused, and the resulting act or damage is due to the intentional act of the victim. Si A manggod na minang sa iyang doktor, ingon ang doktor na ayaw sa farm diha kay imuhang kamot, na-hack na siya. But he still did his chores. So kani manggong, when you do chores manggong, when you do farm work, na manggong tetanus toxin diha sa imuhang ground. So kani mo man yung causative agent nimo sa tetanus. So kato siguro because of the open wound, kaning tetanus toxin isulod na sa iyahang bloodstream which caused this individual to have tetanus. So ang unsa man gud ang signs and symptoms of your tetanus is first the development of your stiff jaw, and then magkalat na siya and would lead to meningitis. So he died. So that is your example of proximate cause being negated by an active force or which resulted to an act or damage, intentional act of the victim. Okay? So may tabuan kung na ay active force na dili appeal sa proximate cause. So ang may tabuan ay si B, di ba namatay man si A, so may tabuan ay dapat consummated homicide, di ba? Ang i-file nato sa iya, but dili man na may ni intervene na event which is he failed to heed the doctor's orders. So B will only be liable for frustrated homicide. Dili consummated homicide kay dili man niya sala na namatay si A. Sala man ni A kay tungod mo man siya naminaw sa iyahang doktor. Klaro ta? Or rewind. Question. Wala yon.
Sir.
Wala,
Sir.
sir.
Sir, yes, sir. Mangutanan ako kanang that kanang kuan good sir kanang di ba kay kuan man ni gisagang man ni ang kanang bolo nga gikuan ni B iya ani ni B sa iya ha. Pwede pa niya magamit sa court ang kanang kuan sir no, ang kanang samad niya sir mabutang sa defense wound. Okay ba na siya sir?
Ito? Magamit as
Sir ba, di ba kay naamo gud to natakal na mo sa na sir nga defense wound nga ginagamit sa sir sa kanang kanang kuan ba kanang mga victim kung nasamad sila ilang tuod, di ba? Kuan man siya sir kanang gina-accept man siya sa court sir, di ba?
Actually, di na ko masabtan imong pangutana. How will you relate?
Sir, I mean, kanang, pwede ba si A, kung siya frustrated murder, magkaso kay B, pwede ba siya mo gamit og evidence nga defense wound? Kay nakuan man iyang kamot, sir, no? Pangutan na lang na kay nalibog, naka-encounter man gud kog defense wound, sir, kung basin, pwede siya dira ba ma-explain?
Okay. Sige. Ngano i-defend gud nimo ang imuhang wound as to the criminal liability of B? Question. Hello.
Wala sir, kay basing kanang wala kay lain masagang sir kita lain na makakuan sa bolo. So imo na lang giana imong kamot.
Are you trying to say na in order to attach the criminal liability of B, you need to prove that you were really hacked by showing your wound to the court? Tama ba?
Yes sir, as defense.
Definitely.
Pwede ba na siya sir?
Yes, definitely.
Maora to sir.
Okay, sige. May pangutana? Wala. Sige. Alright, let's go to the second paragraph. So, ano ang unsaha ang first paragraph sa Article 4? You will always be liable criminally if you commit a felony, although the wrongful act done be different from that which you intended. So that's how you should argue. So if there is error in persone, if there is aberratio ictus, if there is praeter intentionem, all these three will always produce criminal liability on the part of the accused or the actor. Now let's move on to the second paragraph. Again, criminal liability shall be incurred, meaning you will still be liable criminally if any person performing an act which would be an offense against persons or property, were it not for the inherent impossibility of its accomplishment or on account of the employment of inadequate or ineffectual means. So memorize this one, ha? Although the second paragraph in your Article 4 is a very peculiar scenario because bihira lang ka makita og ingani na crime. Usually, under your second paragraph of Article 4, this is what you call impossible crimes. And throughout ako ang experience, wala pa ko nakakita og impossible crime diri sa ato ang District 1. Unsa man ni impossible crime, sir? So impossible crime man ka, sir. Anong liable gihapon mi? Okay, why? Because Article 4, paragraph 2 states that liability will attach. And you have to meet certain requirements in order for you to be held criminally liable. So for you to be held criminally liable, kaning imong act should have been an offense against persons or property. Meaning, these are crimes that fall under persons or property na crimes such as robbery, theft, for crimes against property, or crimes against persons such as homicides like physical injuries, murder, infanticide. And second paragraph is the act is not an actual violation of another provision, meaning ang imong gibuhat is not a violation that could be found under the revised penal code or under any special law. And lastly, there must be criminal intent. Another term for criminal intent is mens rea, which literally means criminal mind. So, under impossible crimes, there must be impossibility in its accomplishment. Meaning, imposible na mabuhat nimo ang krimen but you will still be held criminally liable. Now, there are two kinds. Weird siya, no? Weird siya na scenario. So, there are two kinds, physical impossibility and legal impossibility. So let's go with the first one, the physical impossibility. Let's say A wants to kill B by poisoning him. A bought a poison for rats. So what he did was he mixed it with the soup and gipainom niya kang B. B, giinom niya ang soup mixed with poison. But he did not die because kusog na yung immune level ni B as against rat poison. So here, there is physical impossibility by reason of inadequate means. The poison was inadequate to kill B. But you will still be held liable for the crime of impossible crime of murder. Okay, youth or attempted murder because you attempt or frustrated murder because you performed all the acts of execution but it did not commence ang imong accomplishment, imong intent to kill. But what happened was, tungod man na sa high level of immunity, uy, gyapon siya. Although there was intent on your part to kill him, but there was physical impossibility. So, the poison was inadequate to kill B, but you will still be held criminally liable. Isa pa, A puts into the soup offered to B to drink arsenic which he bought from a street vendor in the market. So, nagbutang siya arsenic sa soup niya inom niya kang B. However, B did not die because abi ni A, arsenic iya napalit. Pero ang iya napalit di ay kay sugar. So, here, there is physical impossibility of killing B because the means is ineffective. Meaning, effective. Di mo siya mapatay kay ang sulod sa imuhang gibutang na poison kuno is actually sugar and not arsenic. But here, you will still be held criminally liable because of your ineffective means, because there is this intent to criminally, there is intent on your part to kill him, but there is physical impossibility because the means is ineffectual. Weird siya, no? Kapansin mo. Weird siya na provision yun. But don't dwell too much on this because, like I said, it's not very common in our jurisdiction. At the same time, dili po siya common kayo sa among courts or sa to ang country, ang impossible crime. Bira na naga-impose ng impossible crime. He wants to kill B, so he went to the house of B, where he saw his intended victim sleeping at the terrace. Thereupon, A fired at B, hitting him in the head. Unknown to A, B has already been dead 30 minutes because of bangungot, which was attested by the medical legal examination. So here, there is physical impossibility. Here, since it is physically impossible to kill a person who is already dead, you can only kill a person who is alive. So, na-meet yung mga requirements, di ba? You committed a crime against persons because you tried to kill B. Kaya abi mo buhi mo siya. Second, the act is not punishable under the revised penal code or any other special law. And lastly, there must be criminal intent. So all three are present for the crime of impossible crime. So here, although patay na siya, maski wala dapat the facts are, wala ka kabalo na patay na diay siya, but abiling mo buhi pa siya. So, buthanin mo siya sa iyang ulo, knowing that this will kill him, but unbeknownst to you, patay na diay siya, let's say 30 minutes or an hour ago, itungod, gibangungot day si B, you will still be held criminally liable, but only as with respect to the crime of impossible crime. Kuha ninyo? Or any questions so far?
Sir. Sir.
Yes.
Sir, amot lang kung connected ba ni sa atong klase, sir. Pero ang question lang na ako, sir, is what if yung example, lawas ka ni, sir, nga patay ka ni, sir, patay nga lawas, girape gihapon. Sa butang nato embalsamador, so ana. So nabot kaso gihapon ana, sir, sa embalsamador. Unsa nga specific nga kaso laban ana, sir?
Unsa to giunsa sa embalsamador?
Girape ang bangkay sa sir, sa lawas sa bay. Kanang patay na ang lawas sa bay, sir.
Oo.
Pero girape gihapon.
Girape gihapon niya. Okay, sige. There is no crime there. Why? He already knows that the cadaver or the body is already dead. Diba? So there is no criminal intent because he knows na maski ripon ako ni gihapon ni siya mo alma kay kabalo ko patay na ni siya. So there will be no crime that would be lodged against the embalsamador.
Pero pwede magkaso ang pamilya, sir, o rape sa embalsamador?
No. Why? Because, di ba, for rape to pursue, the following elements must be present. First, dapat, di ba, it should be let's say woman siya, okay, check. Without her consent or it was done through intimidation or aggression or so ba? So dili man siya present gyapon. Wala man kay already dead naman siya, di mo siya makahatag og iyang consent. Plus, if you remember, di ba, yeah, moto.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Isumpay lang nako, sir. Example, sir. Isumpay lang nako sa kay sumambot na ano ganito about sa patay ng alawas. Namagoy istorya, sir, na patay na siya, sir, nya kaning gihilabtan sa kaning embalsamador. And then nabuhi siya, sir, kay kato nga time gihilabtan sa embalsamador niya, nabuhi ang bae niya. Once na kay nabuhi man ang bae, sir, nya mag-file og kaso ang bae. Na ba siya ikon, sir? Kaya na mag-istorya na, sir. Dagan mag-istorya.
Okay. So this is a different set of facts. So let's say gibutang tong babae dito knowing na alive pa siya. Let's say alive pang girl. Let's say di lang siya kalihok or di lang siya ka resist because let's say catatonic siya. So here she was forced to be raped, meaning wala siya naghatag sa iyang consent. Then the embalsamador will be held liable.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Mm.
kanang kuan lang sir, kanang addition atong kay sumambot sir.
Mm.
Dili siya ano sir no, dili siya ma-filean og kanang rape kay tungod nga ang embalsamador ay kay tungod nga patay na ang kanang tao. Pero naay attitude ang kuan sir no, naay kanang behavior sa kanang mga criminals like that sir, di ba? Murag katong sexual deviance nga behavior sa mga criminal nga inana, like familiar ka sir sa ano kay Ted Bundy nga si Ted Bundy kanang mupatay siyang tao niya after iyahang rape pon ang ay iyahang kuanon ang babae kay dili siya ay gusto niya kanang patay ang lawas sa babae before niya gamiton.
That's what you
call sir na para dili.
That's what you call necrophilia.
Yes sir, necrophilia sir. Pero lahi na to nga kuan kay Ted Bundy sir kay murag na siya crime nga kanang pagpatay ang kuan lang kay katong ginagamit ang babae nga kanang patay na dili na makakuan og kuan kanang case. Sir.
So okay ha, i-summarize na ako sa situation na gihatag nimo parikano og dinhi sa mambot ang embalsamador dili ninyo siya ma-hold na criminal liable because there is no criminal intent because the embalsamador already knows that this person is already dead. So he cannot inflict lewd designs or kanang tatawag ani lewd designs or any lust on the part of the on the cadaver or the dead person. So kana lang ang reason.
Sir. Sir, pero murag insult sa part sa pamilya sir ba? Example, nakita nimo caught in the act nimo sir ana. Napay kaso nga pwede ihatag pa sir.
Civil damages. Danios.
Okay sir, okay.
Question? Wala
na sir.
Okay, sige. Right. Let's move on to Article 5. Article 5 states that the duty of the court in connection with acts which should be repressed but which are not covered by the law and in cases of excessive penalties. Whenever a court has knowledge of any act which it may deem proper to repress and which is not punishable by law, it shall render the proper decision and shall report to the chief executive through the DOJ the reasons which induce the court to believe that said act should be made the subject of legislation. In the same way, the court shall submit to the chief executive through the Department of Justice such statement as may be deemed proper without suspending the execution of the sentence, when a strict enforcement of the provisions of this code would result in the imposition of a clearly excessive penalty, taking into consideration the degree of malice and in the injury caused by the offense. So basically, your Article 5 states that, for example, nullum crimen nullum pena sine lege. There is no crime which punishes it, but in your area, always di siya ginabuhat na deviant behavior. So it is the duty of the court to inform the chief executive, meaning the president, through its Department of Justice na, uy, we have a deviant behavior here. And kanina siya na deviant behavior, this should be repressed. So what you should do is dapat you should instruct the legislative department to make a legislation or put into a law penalizing this deviant behavior. In the same way, kung may crime na, example, you committed a crime which is punishable by a law, but you think that this punishment is too excessive. So, kailangan po din mo i-consult ang chief executive na, uy, kaning imuhang punishment, it's too much, it's too excessive for a mere deviant behavior. For example, ana. Actually, for me dapat kaning last two, kaning Republic Act 9287, this is very, para sa ko on my part excessive ang iyang penalty for kanila, labi na ning mga runner lang. Okay, ilahang punishment is at least 8 years to 10 years. So for me, grabe na po din 8 years to 10 years. Mura ibutang naka sa kategory sa 7610 na which is rape of a minor. So to me, or in my end, dapat i-lower ang penalty sa Republic Act 9287. So just so lang maka-relate mo sa Article 5. So kaya lang pasabutan ng Article 5 of the Revised Penal Code. Naipabutan ha?
Itong gana yan.
Watch lang. Go watch. Just watch. Class naman, daddy. Watch lang, watch.
Okay na? Okay. Alright, let's move on to Article 6. Consummated, frustrated, and attempted felonies. Consummated felonies, as well as those which are frustrated and attempted, are punishable. Yun. Right. A felony is consummated when all the elements necessary for its execution and accomplishment are present. And it is frustrated when the offender performs all the acts of execution which would produce the felony as a consequence, but which, nevertheless, do not produce it by reason of causes independent of the will of the perpetrator. And there is an attempt, meaning it is only in the attempted stage, when the offender commences the commission of a felony directly or overacts and does not perform all the acts of execution, which should produce the felony by reason of some cause or accident other than his own spontaneous desistance. So, sa'yo pasabot ani sir. So, this article states that there are 3 stages of a crime. Now, it could either be consummated, meaning kung unsa man imuhang intention na accomplish yun mo. For example, you have intent to kill and you were able to kill that individual. For example, you have intent to gain, so you were able to rob or nakawatan yun mo tong individual na to. Or let's say, with lewd design na nagka-carnal knowledge ka, meaning na rape yun mo tong imuhang person na gusto mo i-rape, then the felony is consummated, completed. And it is frustrated when the offender performs all the acts of execution, which should produce the felony, but does not produce it by reason of causes independent of the will of the perpetrator. Meaning, ibuhat na nimo tanan, but wala gihapon na commit ang felonious act because of reasons na hindi mo hawak as a criminal or as an accused. And there is an attempt when the offender commences the commission of the felony directly by overt acts, but hindi mo ma-perform tanang acts of execution na dapat mag-produce of felony because of some accident or other than his own spontaneous desistance. So, sama din sila, sir. But before we move on to that, kailangan natin mag-learn of certain terminologies, such as formal crimes. So, maning formal crimes. These are crimes which are always consummated by a single act, like slander or physical injuries, meaning these are always consummated. So when you say slander, so when you defame an individual either orally or through printing or through writing, then you consummate the act, meaning nahuman yun mo, nabuhat na nimo ay mohang intention. Or physical injuries, gusto nimo dumugon siya, so gisumbag nimo siya or gikulatan nimo siya, gimol nimo siya, M-A-U-L ha, dili kay mauling, M-A-L-L, mauling kay usa na siya. Kana mo adto kag Gisano Mall or Abriza ba kay para maglakwat siya, but when you say mall, M-A-U-L, that means kulata. So when you kulata someone, langan consummate yun mo ang act because sumbaga naman nimo siya or nakulata naman nimo siya. So those are what you call as formal crimes. They are always in their consummated stage. Material crimes are those which have 3 stages of execution. So they have attempted, frustrated, and consummated. And development of crime. A crime consists of internal acts and external acts. When you say internal, they are absolutely not punished because it is not a crime. So for an example of that, let's say I want to kill Mr. Sumambot. So I went to the nearest store to buy bolo. Oh, yeah. Can you hold me criminally liable because I bought a bolo? Of course not. Because these are just internal acts. Now, external acts refer to preparatory acts and acts of execution. As a rule, preparatory acts are not punishable unless these acts are punished in themselves as independent crimes. On the other hand, acts of execution are punishable and depending on the stage of their execution, whether the same is attempted, frustrated, or consummated. When you say external acts, for example, how do you know that you are about to be killed? By using a bolo. So alangan, you have to brandish your bolo. So pagawas nimo sa imong sheath, tapos imo siyang i-display. So kana external act yun na siya. What else? By drawing your pistol from your pocket. Alangan, kuhaon nimo, alangan namang mukuha ka sa imong pistol, alangan na magdula-dula. Of course not. If you want to kill a person, you have to draw the pistol. So these are what you call external acts. Example, conspiracy and proposal to commit a crime being preparatory acts are not punishable except in those provided by law. So an example of a proposal or conspiracy to commit a crime in their preparatory acts that could be held criminally liable are those possession of clocks. Kaya clocks, manggod, if you are caught in the possession of picklocks, you will be held liable, although it may be only in the preparatory stage. But since it is expressly provided by law na maski preparatory stage pa lang, nakay possession ng picklocks, you will still be held liable. Naipamuta na regarding sa terminologies and example. Question? Wala. Right, sige. So when can you say that a felony is consummated? So it is consummated when the intention of the offender has been accomplished. It is consummated. So if you want to kill B, you shot him, causing B's death. So when B died, a crime of murder was committed. So there's nothing that A can do in order that this criminal design be accomplished. The crime must already be consummated by the mere fact of death of B. So if your intent is to kill B and namatay gid si B, then the crime that you committed is in its consummated stage, meaning completed, final stage kana. Naipamuta na? Wala.
Wala, sir.
All right, sige.
Sir.
Yes.
Sa ganitong correction, sir, dread correction ba siguro to kung na naman gud pinabasaan ng kaso, sir?
Unsa? Hello?
Sir. Sige, sir. Okay na, sir.
Okay na? Sige. So, when is a felony in the frustrated stage? So, let's go back to Article 6. When is it frustrated? When the offender performs all the acts of execution, we should produce the felony, but as a consequence, nevertheless, do not produce it by reason of causes independent of the will of the perpetrator. Meaning, nabuhat na nimo tanan. But despite such fact, wala gihapon nimo na-produce tong imuhang accomplishment tungod sa isa ka event which is outside of your control. So, in this paragraph, when in spite of the performance of all the acts of execution or requisites, we should produce the felony as a consequence, but the intended felony was not produced or accomplished, or when the non-accomplishment of the felony is outside of the will of the perpetrator himself, the crime is in frustrated stage. So the very common example of that is this in your second paragraph. A wanted to kill B, so he shot him in the abdomen, sa iyang tiyan banda. So the wound is fatal. B is expected to die as the wound is a mortal wound. However, B did not die because he was immediately brought to the hospital and the timely medical intervention by the doctors saved his life. Here, all the acts of execution that would result to the intended criminal design, meaning intent to kill B, were all performed. But B did not die, and the survival of B was due to the reason or causes independent of the will of A. Hence, the crime committed was frustrated murder. So, sir, unsa man diri tong reasons independent of the will of the perpetrator? Katong immediate pagdala sa hospital, katong medical intervention sa mga doctors para i-save ang kinabuhi ni B. These acts are beyond his control, meaning independent of his act or his will. So, that makes it within the frustrated stage. Okay, maski buhat niya tanan, wala gyapon na produce ang crime because of causes independent of the will of the perpetrator. And in this case, B was immediately brought to the hospital and was timely saved by the doctors. Any questions so far? Klaro ang frustrated stage sa crime?
Okay na, sir.
Okay na, sige. Alright, another example. A wanted to kill B, so he shot him, hitting in the abdomen. The wound is fatal. B, Monday ni. What the hell? Bakit na duha ni? Okay, sige. Sorry. So, kanya yung mga example na ganiha. Alright, let's go to the attempted stage. When is a felony in its attempted stage? So, for example, A would like to kill B. So, he drew his pistol and aimed a shot at B. However, the bullet hit a passing van and did not hit B. Seen by the police, A was apprehended. So there is an attempted murder in this case because the offender has already begun by overt acts of commission, meaning gigawas na niya ang pistol, he aimed and shot pagid at B, but was able to perform all the acts of execution by reason of the van that passed by. Bali, ang van ang nipisalo sa bullet and it was not B who was shot. So, mo ni ang reason nganong nasa attempted stage lang ang example. Naipangutan na? Hello?
Okay na, sir.
Okay na. Alright, so klaro attempted stage ha. All right, so
Yes,
that
sir.
ends our lecture for today. We will continue with articles 8, 7 to 10 on Thursday. And then thereafter, we will have our first preliminary exam. Ha? So, mag-attendance ako. Okay. Where's my attendance? Check attendance ako ha. Okay.